As you look back on your varied career, what activity or thing that you did gave your career the biggest boost? What caused you to really feel like you'd done something good and got recognition for it?
I think I would say the announcement that we made of the settlement of a major lawsuit against Aetna by a group of physicians. We were the first company to settle that lawsuit. The lawsuits were brought by state medical societies against Aetna and against all of our major competitors in the late 90s. When our new leadership came in, it made the decision to basically become the first company to settle that lawsuit. And we did so out of the view that we needed to fundamentally change the way we operated with physicians, that we should see them as our partners and not as our adversaries. And so you might have found in another company where a lawsuit had to be settled an effort by the PR team to kind of downplay it, to emphasize the fact that we've admitted to no wrongdoing, and to try to slide a press release out at 4:30 on Friday in the hope that it'd be buried in the Saturday paper. We took a different approach. We said, this is a groundbreaking thing. Yes, we're settling a lawsuit. Yes, we're paying damages. However, what's represented here is a fundamental change in the way we do business. It's critically important. And so we're actually proud of this. And we hired a room in New York. We got the head of the American Medical Association, the Connecticut State Medical Society, and the California Medical Association to come with us. We put a big banner up behind the stage that said "New Era of Cooperation," and we stood up there and we talked about our desire to work cooperatively with physicians going on. It was live on CNBC, and the next day, above the fold in the New York Times, there was a story that said, "Aetna announces new era of reform." That was a pretty critical success.
I tell you, that's a great story, Raj, in more ways than one. What would you say some of your major accomplishments were while you were in Washington in these variety of different experiences and jobs?
Well, there's a lot. It was 16 years, but let me just pick one or two if you wish. The first one I think I would talk about is while I was at USTR, that's the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. It was a really important time in the history of our trade policy because there was a growing protectionist movement in the United States. This was the mid-'80s. The Japanese were very much on the rise. American business was very much under challenge from foreign competition. And we had an administration that was very, very committed to a free and open trade policy and the belief that open trade leads to economic prosperity. And yet, people were losing their jobs, and there was significant concern within the body politic around unfair trade practices. And so the Reagan administration made the choice that it would begin to aggressively enforce Section 301 of the Trade Act, which allowed the president to retaliate against unfair trade practices from abroad. So I was basically the spokesperson for the president's trade policy at a time when this free market president began to put into place what some might view as protectionist policies in reaction to protectionism from abroad, and at the same time to use that policy to try to convince the rest of the world to come together with us to create a new round of trade talks that would further liberalize trade. So it was a real, we had a lot of focus on trying to get publics, not only in the United States, but around the world, to understand what we were doing, why we were doing it, and why this sort of retaliatory action that we were taking to protectionism abroad was not in fact protectionist, but was rather what we had to do in order to try to convince the world to move to a more liberalized trade regime.
In the course of working on that, did you have contact with the president himself, or how did that tie-in work?
No, I did not. I had contact with the White House staff on a daily basis. And for example, the Office of the Press Secretary and my office were closely connected, and we had constant interchange. Also with the White House speechwriters, because I was working on issues that the president spoke on, so I would provide paragraphs for the president's speeches.